eDAO is focused on arts, on music, on films, on creators. And so if there is a community or a creator or a brand you're working with, is there a first step that they should be thinking about? Like if you're in the entertainment space, what's the first step you take into Web3? Like, is there a playbook you're offering these partners you're working with, or is each one really on a case by case basis?
There is a simple playbook. Obviously, how you orient it depends on a case by case basis, right? But if you step back and think about it, the first step always must be to get those digital collectibles in the hands of as many of your true fans as possible. That's
Okay.
it. That's the first step. Your free mint NFTs, your dynamic NFTs, get them into the hands of people and then start to activate them as you will. That's where the creativity comes in later on, right? So, what do I give people who now I know are my true fans, who now I know are my ambassadors? That becomes a very interesting question, which can, you can then infuse so many engagement loops within it. But the first step always is to start with those digital collectibles, I think. And we've got a pretty strong product with respect to that collectible itself and the way you sort of distribute it among a large number of people. So that would be our playbook. The second step is to of that playbook is to activate all of those collectible holders. It's different again for every industry. If it is, say, in the arena of consumer electronics, you can get people to become part of your product journey itself. That is so rewarding. Companies like OnePlus have created massive communities by essentially outsourcing the specs of their upcoming phones with the community. But the only difference is that the community is not necessarily rewarded for all of that useful user data as such. You can do that. You can change that up, which with digital collectibles,
Yeah.
fashion, automotive, everything else in between, right? So this is the playbook essentially. Then there
Makes
is
sense.
the idea of the metaverse itself that we did for Flipkart. So yeah, that's so.
Yeah, well, I'd like to get into some examples of companies entering the space that have really succeeded here. And so let's talk about Flipkart. And just before that, I'll mention Reddit this week, or I'd say maybe it was even last week too, just has been making a lot of narratives here. And they launched collectibles and they launched a native wallet that you hold these collectibles in. And the once you start collecting, then there's like a point system. So it's all Reddit native. But the things they did really well were they had native integration. So minting was done directly in their app. They abstracted Web3 away from the communication around it and the user experience. There was little to no mention of crypto lingo. NFTs were called collectibles, wallets were called vaults. They were built on Polygon. So it goes back to this Polygon being an accessible ecosystem. And this ultimately led to a huge distribution with 3 million plus people holding these collectible avatars now. And so it almost seems like Reddit put on a masterclass in how to launch a Web3 activation, and they did it in the middle of a crypto winter. So I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned here. And I'm curious now that I've shared that, what are some of these lessons learned from your Flipkart activation and in partnership? And maybe even let people know what Flipkart is, because I believe is it not the biggest e-commerce brand in India?
It is. It was acquired by Walmart a few years ago, but
Wow.
it is the biggest e-commerce enterprise in India. I think it controls 42% of the market share. It's got 175 million monthly active users, and I think in excess of 400 million users. And it's a beast. It's a giant, and it's just pretty inspiring that they chose to experiment in the Web3 space like they did. And what we essentially did was a couple of pilot programs, right? Wildly successful now. And over the last couple of months, it didn't take a long time to get this off the ground either. So kudos to those guys again. We sort of engineered two activations around the festive sale season, which is, we have a lot of festivals in India, but two of them that we chose were, one was Dasera and the other was Diwali. And these end up being the largest sale events in India, online sale events in India. So what we did in the first one was to launch a simple treasure hunt for people within the ecosystem, and users in a span of 10 days, they claimed 200,000 collectibles that eDAO produced, which I
Wow.
thought was pretty cool. Yeah, impressive, right? And then a few weeks later, we gave them their first taste of the metaverse. And when I say metaverse, we went all out, right? We created this hyper realistic biome using Unreal Engine 5, and we streamed the whole thing into people's apps. They didn't have to download a separate app, they didn't have to go outside of their ecosystem somewhere else. They just could access a hyper realistic world where they could go and engage with 13 brands from the Flipkart ecosystem, claim offers, connect and interact with products. They could, you start off with a little shooter game, right? And then you enter the verse. You can claim offers, interact with brands. You can claim also art based NFT, which is the strand, that dynamic NFT I was talking about. And finally, you can, with one selfie, create a metahuman avatar of yourself. You could do all of that. And the amount of traction we saw was incredible. I mean, for one, uh, eDAO spent a bomb in creating this experience and sort of streaming it to a bunch of people. It's still not tenable to keep repeating this, but it made for such an exciting use case, right? Because the average time that a user spent in this biome was 4 to 7 minutes, which is insane, right? It certainly beats you scrolling quickly through a two-dimensional display of products.
Yeah.
People engaged with products more because it was three-dimensional, and you could actually interact with it and conduct commerce with it. It wasn't an empty experience. And so, the flipverse is what we called it, because it flipped the narrative on what e-commerce ought to be. And the treasure hunt were two extremely important proof of concepts for what eDAO does, essentially. So we brought in IPs from all of our partners, which included Hefty Entertainment, which basically holds the Web3 rights to giant production houses like T Series, which is the largest YouTube channel in the world. Some major A-list actors, artists like MF Hussain and Arzan Khambata, Divine, who's the largest hip hop artist out of India, and we put all of them inside this experience. So people got to enjoy IP and conduct commerce in that same ecosystem, which is, we just got to do that, was in itself a reward. And to see the kind of traction was even more. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, the it sounds like consumers enjoyed the richer retail experience that Web3, NFTs, collectibles, ownership, avatars, metaverse, all that like led to. So seeing a major brand like Flipkart experiment with this is exciting to see, and very cool that you are all on the frontier. You're listening to the Unstoppable Podcast, the go-to place for everyone to learn about the latest innovations in Web3, NFTs, and the decentralized web. Welcome to the metaverse.